we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the projects that are out there, kind of a, I don't want to say a year-end review, but just kind of a status update on where things are. Superior Street Row.
We have an agreement with the folks that wish to develop a mixed-use project there, Superior Row. Smaller, of course, than Harrison, but similar lines in terms of the uses. A retail on the first floor, a little office, a little residential. The folks responsible for that project have a written memorandum of understanding between the commission and themselves that as soon as they can obtain leases that would enable them to go get financing, they just need to come back to the commission and we can begin to put a development agreement into place and construction can begin. So the ball's in their court to do that hard, heavy lifting that right now is particularly difficult in this environment. Find people who are willing to sign leases that are bankable, that can be converted to bank financing that can enable the project to go forward.
We were talking a little bit about the Dimension Ford property, former Dimension Ford property.
Good news, the project's going as we wanted it to. Recap there was an opportunity to buy 30 acres of ground that was industrially zoned on one of our major corridors into downtown Fort Wayne. A property that's in the floodway that had limited use commercially or any other way for that matter because of the floodway restrictions on building. Given its zoning, it had the potential of being a potentially blighted piece of property, even more so than it was at its end stage. And it was the decision collectively of the city, the Parks Department, the Redevelopment Commission, to acquire the property, $1.2 million for 30 acres, not too bad a price in my estimation. And then our goal was to remove the building, remove the asphalt, and remove the environmental contamination, subsurface soil contamination that existed there from the underground storage tanks that had leaked. And we've done all those things. And the next step is to figure out if there's an appetite in the private sector for the last building that remains, given the limitations of construction. And then to fill in the site with fill, which we have permission from all the regulatory agencies to do, restoring it to its original elevation. And then in the spring, begin to get it planted with some sort of material that will stop soil erosion. And then turn it over to the Parks Department. And then over time, as budgets allow, and as they get input from the surrounding neighborhoods, convert it to some sort of use, sports fields, soccer fields, passive green space. There are any number of possibilities, but those are the leading contenders for future use by the parks going forward.
We've wrapped up the first year, Parkview Field. What are your feelings about the ballpark, about the project at this point?
Well, I don't have any children, but I think it's at least a similar feeling to help be partially responsible for giving birth to a facility that clearly lots of people enjoyed immensely, and I might say over and over again. It snuck up on people from the opening night, 8,200. And then as weather came back and it got warmer and baseball season, it really hit with the weather, and people started to find out the place it was to meet people, to have fun, real economic value for the dollar that they were spending. You could just see the crowd start to pick up as the season went on. Most of the sellouts were in the back half of the year. And that was without the benefit of large corporate gatherings, for the most part. There were a number of those, but not as many as had been in the past because of the tough economic times. Companies laying people off didn't feel quite so free to host large company parties at the same time. So that attendance, while a much larger portion that would normally be from those outings, took place as a result of word of mouth and people coming back over and over again and bringing other people with them. And there's no doubt that that's what took place, and I think that it will carry over in the next season. Hopefully, next season things will be even better with some of those corporate outings and corporate events. But it was a great place to be, And not just Harrison Square, but standing there and watching the concerts across the way at the library, having things like Busker Fest go on at the Summit, One Summit Square, having restaurant people come forward voluntarily saying they'd extended hours, added employees, especially on nights when there were games, and then even when there weren't, because people came back because they were crowded on those times and wanted to come back when it wasn't so crowded. Despite the sales tax issue about reduced revenues downtown, that was across the board reduction. And I think the only way to do justice to the impact economically to downtown would be to look at all zip codes from year to year and not just downtown. And you would see that all zip codes went down, not just downtown. So I think all evidence was that it was a huge success. And I can tell you the White Lodging people are just excited as they can be to open up next year, being a part of Harrison Square. And I'm quite convinced that that's helping Berry Real Estate get closer to some significant leases on the Harrison, which should help launch that project next year as well.
And we were talking about this a little bit before. You're still very confident in Berry Real Estate and feel that they're putting their best foot forward?
They are, in my estimation, really working hard at trying to do what has to be done for any commercial development to occur, and that is to find credit-worthy tenants willing to sign long-term leases that can then be taken to banks to obtain construction financing. We weren't looking for, nor do we want to have a spec building built there. A spec building that stays empty does us no good.
What do you mean by a spec building?
A spec building is a building that is built without any tenants already signed up to occupy the space. So while some people say Berry should just build that building as a part of their commitment and hardball its commitment to the city, it's not productive to build a building that sits empty. That was somewhat of the problem with Midtown Crossing for a while. That building did not sell right away. It took quite a long time for it to fulfill its place in the market. And at this particular time, given the downturn in the economy, it's not surprising that it's taking longer than we would like for those leases to be signed. It's much better for that building to be full or nearly full when construction commences than to have it built and have it sit empty. First of all, banks won't allow that to happen, number one. And developers don't build projects out of cash. They do borrow money to do it. And borrowing money requires leases. And leases are where everything is focused on right now.
And I know there was something on the news last night that I caught that it's still hard for businesses to get the loans that they need to do some of the things they want to do. So that the economy still isn't quite back to where
the ability for capital to be out there for small businesses nationally and locally is still suffering, and you hear it from borrowers who are having a difficult time getting money that they need to have in order to expand businesses. And what it will take for that to change, I don't know. I'm not an economist. I do think that the regional banks around Fort Wayne and Allen County in Northeast Indiana were not as involved in the derivatives and the mortgage, the subprime mortgages that other larger national banks were. So we don't see the bank failure rate here that other banks in other locations had, and that's evidenced by the fact that many local banks stood up to help participate with the hotel loan, albeit in smaller amounts, but still they wanted to participate. And hopefully that's going to continue to demonstrate itself going forward.